if I can remember how to do it. So welcome to a Whiskey Circus on a Thursday night. Thanks everyone for coming in. I know everybody hasn't been able to join us tonight, but we're obviously here for one reason, just to have a drink. We're drinking our exclusive bottling for us, and we're lucky to have Mike Fisher, who is the English Whisky Global Ambassador. So really, really privileged to have him, because normally by now he's in bed fast asleep.
I am. Oh no, because Corrie's on, so it'll be after Coronation Street. I'll be in bed.
Oh yeah, you've just really gone downhill with my estimation there, Mike. But basically, the plan tonight is, I know most of us have already had a drink of it, and I know we've been quite impressed from what I've heard. So I just wanted to try and get Mike on to sort of talk us through the initial part of the bottling and where the cask came from and what the cask is and things like that. And then hopefully we can all just give a few sort of thoughts on what we think, and then that's it, we'll wrap it up. So it's not going to be a long one, but I'll hand you over to Mike. Hopefully he's got a bit of information ready for us. And
I've got a bit of whiskey, that's the main thing.
Yeah, that's normal for a circus. And while we're doing this, please everybody dive in and be drinking, you know, don't sit there.
You've got to get amongst it, surely.
Yeah, so I'll hand over to you, Mike, and we'll go from there.
All right, thank you very much. So, obviously, Soren prattles on about English whiskey quite a lot, so I don't really need to explain, I think, to any of you who we are and all that, and go through the whole rigmarole of that. It's mainly, obviously, about this whiskey, which, if I just grab a bottle, actually. Here we go. So, obviously, this was a cask which was bottled just for you lot. And everybody, I think, has everybody on here actually got a bottle? Yeah?
Yeah.
Yes, there we go. Perfect. Good. So it was a very, very small cask. We've got a few of these small casks at the distillery, which we've been using for a while. And to be honest, we haven't actually bottled that very many of them. I bottled, I think where the initial idea for this came from was me and Soren talking. And I bottled a couple of these casks, a peated one and an unpeated one, about a year ago, and used them as just like little exclusives for when I was doing some certain tastings with certain customers and things. And then obviously I got Soren some samples, and he seemed to like it very, very much. And hopefully everybody else likes it quite a lot. So they're actually the 50-litre casks that this has been in. And we've got some of these got peated liquid in, some of it's got unpeated liquid in. Yours is obviously unpeated, and there's been quite a bit of evaporation from them. And I think, what did we get? 54 bottles, was it? Yeah, something like that. Yeah, 54 bottles out of the cask in the end. 57.3. So it's actually a third fill cask, which you wouldn't think from all the colour and everything on there that it's actually a third fill cask, but the first two fillings of the cask were actually quite short, and that's what we do with quite a few of the smaller casks. And it's more to round off the initial sort of wood that you're getting out of it, and some of the harsher sort of flavours that you're getting out there. So the one that you've got was initially filled in June of 2007, and the first filling went through to February 2008. So about 8 months, something like that. And that was just new make, straight in and straight out. And then the second filling went in from February 08 through to November 08. So again, about 8 months, something like that. So the first two fillings only actually, there was spirit in there for around about 16 months, something like that. And then this went in January of 2009. And then it was fully matured till it was bottled. It was bottled in October 2020, honestly, even though it doesn't say it on the label, but hey. So it was, its entire maturation has been in there. And I think you can really get, if it had been from a first fill or the second fill, I think that it would have been overwooded by now. And it would have just been a little bit too much. It would have gone over, really, in my opinion. and we'd have probably had to do something like blend it in with something that had been in bourbon or something like that. So I think you get a real big straight away on the nose, real sort of like the caramelization's coming through on that really quite up the front, and then you're getting cinnamon. And funnily enough, you're getting whiskey as well in there. Because there's nothing wrong with whiskey-flavoured whiskey, is there?
It generally does help, doesn't it?
Mm. So one thing that I think hopefully quite a lot of people get from our whiskies all the way through is like a stewed apple sort of flavour coming through on it. And I think that goes through quite a lot of our whiskies, not so much on the peated ones, but on the unpeated ones, you get that stewed apple and quite easy and quite smooth. And I think there's a slight sort of smokiness, whether it's the oak or I don't quite, I think it's the oak, but there's a slight smokiness on there, but it isn't peated in any sort of way at all.
I mean, what I found quite interesting with this one, Mike, is obviously knowing it's from a wine cask. When I first went into it, I thought sherry cask on the nose, but wine cask on the palate. It does seem to fluctuate between the two, I thought.
I think it's got that dryness that you get from a wine cask. So that you get I think that dryness comes, I don't know whether it is the wine or whether it's the European oak that does that, but these are obviously European oak casks.
Yeah.
Because they're reworked wine casks and they've been made into 50 litres. So I think you always get that. And I think also that helps with developing the flavours over a longer period of time. If this had been American oak that it had been in, then again, it would have been far too potent at this point, leaving it in for 11 years. And with it being European oak, it just mellows a lot slower, really. And that's why I quite like European oak, and because it just takes a lot longer to develop the flavours. And I think quite often in the distillery, especially with the wine casks, you'll see we can taste something maybe at a certain period, especially wine casks, and it won't be that clever, or it won't be as where we want it anyway. And then 6 months later, it's absolutely at a sweet spot. And then, but it will fluctuate all the way through, and you have to really catch it just at the right time with a lot of the European oaks, really. Whereas the American oak is a lot more, I don't know, you know what you're getting from day to day out of those, really. They're a lot more easy to predict, really, I think.
I know one of the main questions that kept coming out, and I know we don't really know the answer, was obviously what type of wine.
No, I've no idea.
I think we're assuming it was a Bordeaux, possibly red wine, and that's about as much as we can say.
I couldn't honestly say. It's not that I don't want to say, it's that I haven't got a clue. And I've looked back at the distillery. I think James was always, because these casks will have been purchased by James, and James was very, very good at sourcing some casks and things like that, but not so clever at actually letting people know where it came from and keeping a record of it or anything like that, really.
Yeah, which, I mean, obviously is, it's a shame, but it also, to me, just adds that little bit of mystique, especially for us, where we know it's a wine cask. We can obviously tell it's a wine cask. So, yeah, we can kind of make it up as to which one it is, depending, I suppose the easiest thing is to look through which was the best wine back then and say it was that one.
Say it came from exactly straight from there. So, yeah absolutely.
I mean,
so what's everybody think of it?
Yeah. Anybody? I know Andy, obviously
Andy's choking on it. Jesus, what's up with him?
It's got a really beautiful floral note, I find. Like on the nose in particular, it smells like a really beautiful flower, I think.
I get a lot of chocolate and espresso, like proper dark chocolate on it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm something similar. I was going to say the initial thing on the palate for me is quite sort of charred, which is surprising given what you've said about the cask that it's been in. But just the initial bit seems like quite a heavy charred barrel, then goes into a lighter fruitiness.
Yeah, no, I get like that slight smokiness on it, which will be obviously the charriness on it, and I think it's totally right. Was anybody surprised, like taking English whiskey as a company and as a sector, really, and then to try this and think that it shows where English whiskey can go, or was anybody let down by it?
No, definitely not.
Neither
Definitely
surprise
not
or let down are good descriptors. I think it's more an expectation because we've seen it how English whiskey has progressed, especially with English Whisky Company. And it's just, I think it's pretty much where we'd hope it would go to some extent.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the nice thing about this one, Mike, and this is what I tried to push to the group, was in a year where we've released our oldest whiskey being an 11-year-old, and now we've managed to get hold of a single cask that is 11 years old, even though the label tells us differently, but that's obviously, part of the group anyway. And obviously we know Andrew.
We know who the biggest clown in the circus is anyway, don't we?
Yeah, if you're watching, Andrew, thanks very much for keeping up appearances for the club. Hopefully I'm not going to get sacked for this. But yeah, I think going back to what Doug said as well with the floral now, I do get where you're coming from. But like Claire says, I think it's just a massive chocolate bomb. Once it's been open for a while, it's just that real dark, bitter chocolate for me.
Well, me and you agreed, didn't we, Soren, on the sherry front? When you initially nose it, if you got this blind, for me, and Soren, obviously, you would not know on the nose that was a wine cask. You normally get kind of some flighty elements. You get a little bit of sourness sometimes, but that's not got any of that at all. And even at, 57.3%, it is so well balanced. I add water to a lot of cask strength drams. Not all of them, but some of them I do.
You don't need to with this.
You just don't need to.
No.
It's just so well balanced. So many nice sort of like different layers to it. There's a lot of spice in there on the palate. There's some of the char, some of the smokiness on there. There's a bit of sweetness as well coming from the wine influence. And you still
has anybody actually tried it with water? Because I'll be honest, I haven't. I always bang on about trying stuff neat and trying it with water, and I haven't actually. It's not actually crossed my mind to try it.
It's already got water in, hasn't it?
A little bit of water, yeah.
I've just added water, and it's worse for it.
Yeah, you seem to forget, Mike. This club is a club of hardcore drinkers. We don't.
That's why everybody's got a purple nose.
Yeah, none of us had water on record. We wait till the camera's off before we have the water.
I've got water now, and I find it makes it a little bit more spicier. It brings out a bit more spice.
And what I will say, it might be a bit of strange taste, and I don't know if anyone else has ever had. Have you had the spicy Skittles?
No, I'm scared of them because
they come in like a black bag.
Yeah,
it's like Skittles, but they've added sort of chili to them. And that's the kind of thing I'm getting there, where it's just got a bit.
There's a tiny little bit of salinity as well, just on the side of the tongue. Just a tiniest little bit of salt.
I mean, just on that, I've added 2 teaspoons of water because I have tried it with water before, and it's lovely. It's equally as good with water as without. But Claire, now you mentioned that salinity. That really does come through.
Yeah. And I like that. I like that mixture because if I have popcorn, I have sweet and salt popcorn mixed together. So for me, to have salinity and the sweet together is really nice.
Too umami, isn't it?
Yeah. I'm sitting here eating it with dark salted chocolate as well. So that works lovely.
Oh, cool.
There's also some kind of prickly side, and Julien is going to laugh with that. But I'm getting also on the palate some sweetened grapefruit.
Okay.
Like with sugar on top.
As always, mate. You always get grapefruit on everything.
No, I don't anymore because now I'm so fearful of saying grapefruit in my tasting notes.
So I get bananas on most whiskies anyway, to be honest.
I can see where you're coming from with the grapefruit, but not sweetened.
I was telling Christophe on my side it was Mirabelle.
Yeah. Well, for once it's not apricots from your side.
Yeah.
I do agree with Soren about sort of how the nose does. It sort of noses more like a sherry whiskey, and I think on the palate, it's like you get all of that really kind of rich red fruit sort of flavour, but then as you kind of continue to drink, it sort of goes back to being those sorts of like sort of sherry style flavours, like sort of like aniseed and, like Claire, you mentioned sort of espresso.
Yeah, chocolate espresso.
I think there's lots and lots of layers in there. I think there's loads and loads of layers. And I think one of the big things, we're not very big into finishing casks or anything like that. Virtually everything that we do is matured. And I think luckily we're in a position where we can afford the time really to properly mature things. And I think the one big advantage of maturing as opposed to finishing or anything like that is that you build up the layers, and you do have them layers that then come back out once you're actually drinking it, or once you've even opened the bottle really and you've left it sitting or the glass sitting. You get all them different layers in there. And I think if you try and finish something quite quickly, or you put it into SDR casks or something like that to give it a big punch, and I think that you don't get that build up of layers as much as what you should do.
I mean, a few things that have been said so far, Mike. Paul, he's saying that he loves the cask strength. He thinks it helps with the flavour, which again, and I've got to agree, it does really enhance those big, bold flavours in there. And then Whiskey Wizard is saying, it develops beautifully and keeps throwing out a lot of different flavours, which again, totally agree with. And like we were saying earlier, I think one of the strengths to it is, with us knowing it came out of a 50-litre cask, I was expecting a real lot of oak in there. And the sample you gave me to start with did bring out that oak in there, but as soon as that chocolate note develops, that oak seems to disappear.
Right, yeah.
A lot of red wine cask ones I've had tend to have like a funky sourness to it, but this one doesn't sort of carry that through. As you said, it's very well balanced, and it's got a sort of, not a numbing, but like a clove-like finish on it. So I think, minutes after.
Yeah. I think now you've said cloves, there was something in there that I wasn't really too sure about, and now you've said that, it's kind of like
I've got cloves written down here as well when I did a little tasting earlier. So
mark that off.
No, you just put Mike. That just says wear cloves when tasting.
Oh, sorry, it does actually. It does.
Yeah, I've seen your notes. Remember?
It says that's not all you've seen as well, Soren.
Really?
The good thing this is waste up only, isn't it?
Yeah.
I've just added a bit of water to mine. I mean, it's in the English whiskey tumbler opposed to the Glencairn. Quite the same, but brings a lot more sweetness out with just a bit of water. I find makes it smoother, a bit less spice to it, but enhances a bit of a sweetness for me.
It gets a little bit more citrusy on the nose as well with a bit of water. I found it's a lot of other of the English whiskies I've had. There's a lot, as well as the stewed apple. There's like lemon in there, citrus, a little bit of vanilla, and that comes through a little bit more water. And on the palate, at first I didn't get the cinnamon that everyone was talking about when it was cask strength, but now I've added a bit of water. It's there, but there's a sweetness as well. So it's more kind of akin to like cinnamon grahams, like golden graham cereal.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Absolutely nuts, but yeah, it's got that kind of really nice, well-rounded, balanced, sweet, sort of like spicy note. It's really, really, really good. Honestly, there's no bitterness to it either, which is nice to see from a wine finish.
I find it interesting. I find it interesting that you found the citrus once you've added water, because that's one thing that I did think was missing a little bit, was the citrus notes in there. But so it's interesting that they've shown up more once you've watered it down.
Yeah, for me it has, on the nose in particular.
Unfortunately, I've not got any water around, I don't think. No, so I can't try.
I haven't found any chocolate sweetness like some people have, but black and red wine gums I've had on the palate. Like there's the people talk about layered and balanced and things. There's like this sweetness, but like with this depth behind it. I don't want to call it like an earthen sort of depth, but there's something to like bring that sweetness back. So there's that balanced thing, that layered thing everyone keeps saying. Yeah,
we're all getting
There's a lot of weight
that sort
behind
of
it.
balance between sweetness and sort of bitterness or earthiness, you know, whether it's coffee or whether it's earth or whether it's char. I actually thought kind of some of that slightly like almost like a slightly sort of astringent sort of oak spice where it sort of does kind of verge a little bit towards like sort of sour.
Yeah, but is it good enough for for Circus bottling then?
Well, I mean, I suppose the thing we've got to say it's the only one that's turned up so far.
No, the Glenmorangie, isn't it?
Yeah.
Sorry, the
reliable
Glenmorangie. Yeah, we did get the Glenmorangie.
You got that
obviously.
one. This should have been my tasting.
Yeah, it should have been actually.
The Glenmorangie wasn't special to us, though. Technically, was it? It was just a special label for us. This is
true.
Proper
whiskey Circus.
Yeah, this is sort of the first cask for us. Should have been the second, but obviously those Swedish guys couldn't get it.
It's the second commissioned. I'd say the first commissioned was the Swedish one, and it wasn't Swedish guys that got in the way. It was some chavvy English guys. So I don't know what that says about.
I suppose in theory, though, Richard, we should say that we've had 2 single casks from Myra.
Yeah, that's true actually.
Yeah. So
the first one will be the second.
Yeah. So maybe we need to do
this was obviously the first one though, because it was bottled in October of 2019.
The Circus was even
before the Circus was even created.
Yeah,
that's true. Yeah,
that's some proper like Inception stuff. That.
Well, this is it. I mean,
come on, let's get in the time machine. Let's get it done.
I think the thing is with this cask, it was obviously laid down specially for the Circus, knowing that when it was bottled, everything would go wrong, other than the fact we'd get it on time.
Yeah.
Exactly. Maybe that's why there's so many mistakes on the label, because Andrew was just like rushing, just like, I've got to beat the fellow that's nicked all that Swedish stuff. Come on, let's do it.
Before they get over here and nick some out of ours as well.
But the label made me feel better about what happened to my cask. So
and I'm not sure they knew everything would go wrong because they didn't hire you yet, I think, in October 2019.
No, but they knew. That's the thing.
Maybe they did, yeah.
Before we sort of stop the recording then, has anybody got any, last words about the whiskey? Everybody think it's good enough for a Circus bottling?
I don't think anyone dislikes it, do they?
It's fantastic representation.
What we'll have to do is we'll have to do another bottling and see if we can get that out before Mara would get your first one out.
this one's definitely top 2.
So the gauntlet is thrown down.
Are we going to do that one for the end of lockdown then, Mike, and we'll still get it out first?
I'm not even saying another word on the subject, to be honest.
And do you think if we actually do one next year, though, we'll get it for this year's bottling day? Should we just do one rolling
every October?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just eventually we'll catch up to ourselves.
I suppose that's one question. Like, does the misprints on the label make it worth more in the future?
Absolutely, yeah. Like a 20 pence that's got the wrong date on and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah, absolutely. Hopefully, there's only about 2 or 3 bottles actually left closed, isn't there? I think
there's only 3 bottles left closed.
Must be. Oh, has everybody opened the bottles?
Lauren's opened all 3 of his.
My 3 are still closed. I'm putting them on auction tomorrow.
Oh well, we'll see. Good luck.
Buy them for 20 quid.
Yeah, but right, I'll not wind it up, but I'll stop the recording. But Sanja, everybody, enjoy your whiskey.
Thanks ever so much.
Cheers.
You guys.
Cheers.
Cheers.
All right, let's see if we can.